Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about our top 24 Dynasty defensive end rankings with tiers. That's right, you heard it. We're going to be doing the defensive side of the ball. In our previous episodes, we've been doing the offense. Now we're starting the defense, and we've got some rookies that are in this group as well.
Hike!
So, Joe, why don't you start us off? Who do you got in tier number 5?
All right, in tier 5 at number 24, got Rashawn Gary. At 23, Jonathan Grenard. 22, Jermaine Johnson. 21, Bryce Huff. And at number 20, Gregory Rousseau.
Wow, okay. Definitely a different combo here. At 24, I've got George Karlaftis. 23, Boye Mafe. 22, Trayvon Walker. And 21, Jermaine Johnson. Now, if memory serves me right, I believe you've got a couple new additions here. I don't believe Rashawn Gary or Bryce Huff were in your top 24. I don't even know if Greg Rousseau was in your top 24 last time we did this.
Yeah, I don't know if Gregory Rousseau was or not, but yeah, you're definitely right. Rashawn Gary's in there. And new, and obviously Bryce Huff, but I really feel like him being traded and stuff makes him pretty interesting, and thought he deserved to be slotted in here in the top 24.
Wasn't he signed in for agency? I think
wasn't
you're
a trade.
No, I think Reddick was traded from the Eagles to the Jets.
That is
Huff
okay.
Signed in for agency. I think you got that mixed up.
Correct. I did get that mixed up.
So let's talk about Bryce Huff, a guy who I don't have in my top 24. Do you think he steps in and takes that? I mean, he's not Haason Reddick, but do you think he then becomes the primary pass rusher? Because it was interesting. We saw the Eagles pass rush do so much 2 years ago, and then last year just fizzled out for whatever reason. I just got stale. But you've got Josh Sweat on there. You've got Nolan Smith. You've got the veteran there and Brandon Graham. So are you feeling that Bryce Huff is going to be the one who emerges out of this group?
Yeah, I definitely think he has the ability to. He was a guy that was impressive with the Jets, but obviously they had guys ahead of him, so he didn't really have a lot of playing time. But in the playing time that he did have, felt like he was an impact player. So I'm curious to see without all the players blocking him, I think he's going to get an opportunity to play more snaps on the Eagles. And, I think he's got a potential to blossom and definitely kind of lead the way for them in terms of sacks and really the edge production.
It's totally possible. I mean, here's the thing. We know for edge rushers, it helps them immensely when they've got that interior pass rush. And They've got Jordan Davis, who looks a lot slimmer. I'll be curious to see. I mean, he's a 2-down guy. Can he become a 3-down guy? That's been his biggest thing. I don't know if he will be, but very interesting. But then obviously they got Jalen Carter, who, obviously had a great rookie year. But they've got that interior pressure, which is going to help Bryce Huff. So that'll be interesting to see how he fares in Philadelphia. I don't have him in my top 24. I can understand why you did. I think it's more of a forecast of what he's going to be. I think he was good last year with the Jets, but I don't think based on his performance with the Jets that I would personally rank him in the top 24. I think it's the potential of what he could be.
Right, yeah. If he was still on the Jets, I mean, I like in my last rankings, he would not have been on here. But the fact that, like you mentioned, in free agency there, goes over to the Eagles, goes to a great landing spot because, like you said, they have that interior pass rush. Not really sure, why their sack numbers and everything fell down last year because they relatively have similar players. And, Reddick didn't have the performance that he did the prior year either. But maybe some new blood in a guy like Huff who's going to be hungry to do something with, more snaps on a new team.
So let's talk about Gregory Rousseau here for a second. He's the guy who I had in my top 24. Believe it or not, he fell out of it.
Wow.
You have him included. I think for me, why I removed him was I think these other guys have just proven more. I mean, they're young, all young guys. They've been able to perform, better than Rousseau. Rousseau hasn't been able to stay healthy. The Bills do a lot of rotation. McDermott's a big believer in that. Now, I don't think they have as much depth at the edge that they did in prior years. Now, who knows? This is early, right? This episode is being recorded here in early June, right? So we still got, we're post June 1st. There's going to be a lot of signings. I want to say Leonard Floyd was signed pretty late when the Bills signed him. So there could be some additional people they add on. They just got some cap relief from the Tre'Davious White post June 1st cut, getting that money back. So what was your reasoning for putting Rousseau here?
Yeah, even though the Bills use a rotation to keep everybody fresh, I just think he's got the potential to, you kept calling this guy a potential breakout. I know it didn't necessarily happen, but I feel like the talent is there and the ability is there to get to the quarterback. And maybe if a guy like Von Miller who can come back another year healthier, if he can actually stay on the field, maybe be an impact player, maybe just having more of an elite rusher on the opposite side of Gregory Rousseau could help him and free up those rush lanes a little bit. But the thing, and then they even got a decent interior, at Oliver's, no slouch in the interior. I know they've got some other guys they like to rotate in and out, but the fact that I know they only play like 20-25% of the snaps, but I know that could be a negative, but it should just keep everyone fresh so that they can be aggressive in the pass rush as well. So he's young enough and I think he's interesting, and I think he still's got the ability to, get a decent amount of sacks on this Bills defense.
So looking at my tier here before we move on, was there anybody that I didn't that you do not have that I listed?
Boye Mafe.
Oh, okay, interesting. I like Boye. I think he's really shown a lot of potential. I mean, he really came on the scene. And my thought was, I think with Mike McDonald going there, I think he actually could do even better what he's been able to do. I think he's a great defensive-minded coach. So I think him coming along, he doesn't really have a lot of help. I mean, he's got Uchenna Nwosu who got injured. We've got a couple other guys that I don't think are probably a fear of him losing his playing time. But that's why I felt like Mafe, I believe he had 9 sacks, if I'm not mistaken. I think he really came on the scene this past year. I felt like he was deserving of a top 24 here.
Yeah, he definitely came onto the scene. I'll be curious to see if he can kind of repeat that performance. And if he does, he definitely keep an eye on him, and maybe he'll eventually get into the top 24 for me.
So let's head over to tier number 4. Who do you got there? Are you enjoying this episode right now? Well, if you are, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, or go ahead and follow us over at Spotify and Apple under the podcast name, The Salary Cap Show. If you're interested in any trade requests, head over to our X, where we have a trade inquiry form where you can fill out and give us all the details you need to help us give you the best advice to make those moves.
Yep. At 19, I've got Alex Highsmith. 18, I've got Trayvon Walker. 17, George Karlaftis. 16, Montez Sweat. And at 15, Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Oh, boy. All right. At number 20, I've got Jalen Phillips. 19, Jonathan Grenard. 18, Harold Landry. 17, Dallas Turner. And 16, Jared Verse. So this is where it gets sort of interesting. I've got a few rookies already starting to come into these tiers. You have not yet, so we need to see. I know you're going to have Latu there.
Still to come, Steve. The rookies are still to come.
Oh, wow. So you're feeling good. It's interesting because even in a not a very good defensive draft on paper, right? I mean, it broke records for how long it took for the first defensive player to go off the board, and the amount of defensive prospects that are even taken in the first round. But we'll talk about that when we get to when you start naming those guys off, because I think we can compare you and me. But I do want to talk about a few guys here in this tier. Let's talk about Alex Highsmith first. You didn't have him in your top 24, and I remember because I was like, what? You don't have Alex Highsmith in your top 24? So I'm a little bit surprised that you turned an about face and put this guy back in.
Yeah, I did. Well, I definitely made changes, Steve. I went back, reflected, and I thought you made some good points the last time, and I end up having Alex Highsmith in there. In tier 4, I feel like it's a fair spot for him. The fact of the matter is, if TJ Watt can stay healthy, he's just got such a dream spot there to be opposite of him, and the different things that the Pittsburgh Steelers are able to do on defense and free those guys up as well. So I still think he's, a good enough player and deserves to be in there.
I think he just benefits so greatly from having TJ Watt on the opposite side. Now, if it was just Highsmith, I think I would feel much differently.
Right.
To
Yeah.
me, I still think he may be on the border of the top 24, but I think,
So do you not have him on there?
No, I do. I have not said him yet.
Okay. Well, that's what I was curious. I know you didn't mention his name yet, so.
No, I'm a little bit higher than you are, but I will say I didn't talk about him before. We'll talk to him about him now. George Karlaftis, guy I dropped significantly in my rankings, and I think the reason why I have him at 24, I think I had him in tier 3 last time, and I think for me what really brought down the tumble for him was he's been solid. I just don't know if he's ever going to have this huge ceiling of a guy who's going to be a game wrecker. I think he's been good. But what happens when Chris Jones is no longer there? Chris Jones has been a staple of that defense. He's not getting any younger. So I think that, he doesn't really have a lot of help on that defensive line other than Chris Jones. So I think George Karlaftis is solid. I think he's worth the top 24. I just think I was, in reflecting back, I think, how do I put this? I think I was catering to his age, him being so young and how productive he's been, but I don't think we've seen an ascension so far. I just don't know if it's going to continue. I wonder if he'll kind of flatline. We've already kind of seen the best from George Karlaftis. That's kind of where I'm at with him.
Hey, I think I'd be pretty happy with George Karlaftis staying the same. Like you said, he's a productive player. He might not elevate, but I still think he's better than the 24th best player, especially, like you said, this is Dynasty defensive end rankings. And because of his age, I think he definitely deserves to be higher than number 24.
I just don't think he has that high of a ceiling. I think that to me is my concern. I just think those other guys, that's why I just put them higher. I just thought that they had a better ceiling than he did.
Which could be fair. Who knows? Like you said, we could have already seen the ceiling from George Karlaftis and, where he's going to reach, but he still is that young player. I think there is some potential for him to still outdo what he has been doing. But if not, just being a solid player, there's nothing wrong with that either.
Now, I'm assuming you have Jalen Phillips and Harold Landry later.
Let me see. Not Harold Landry, but Jalen Phillips, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about Harold Landry. Why do you think why was he not included in your top 24? I think, to me, he came off the ACL injury, if I'm not mistaken. It was Achilles. I think it was ACL. And he had actually a more productive season than I was expecting him to have last year. I think this Titans defense, I was dogging them last year. I think they're actually in a lot better place heading into this year. They really helped the back end, big time with some moves that, free agents moves that they've made. I don't know. I think that Harold Landry, I think, is under the radar guy.
Yeah, he definitely could be. He definitely could be under the radar. Like you say, people don't really talk about that Tennessee defense. But I think at the end of the day, I just like the other guys better in their potential. So I did not have Harold Landry in my top 24.
For him to have 10.5 sacks last year, coming back, from the AC, or was it 10? Was that 10.5 sacks? Yeah, 10. He had 10.5 sacks last year. To me, that's pretty impressive considering him coming back from that ACL injury. I didn't think that he would be. I was a little concerned. I didn't think he was going to be as productive as he was. I thought that was pretty big for him.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he missed the whole 2022 season.
Correct. Yeah, it's definitely fair to be skeptical, and the fact that he did get 10.5 sacks, like you said, is pretty impressive.
So one other guy we're going to talk about in this tier, and I got to give you credit because you're sticking to your guns, even though I think you're horribly wrong. You dropped Kayvon Thibodeaux to tier 3. I'm a little surprised by this because I know you've never been a Thibodeaux guy. So that's why I'm proud of you for sticking to your guns, even if the tomatoes are getting thrown your way. But I feel like you must think that Burns is really going to now take off because now you got Burns and Thibodeaux with Dexter Lawrence in the middle. So I feel like they both are benefiting from them both being there. But do you feel otherwise?
Yeah, I like Burns. I mean, you'll see where I've got him ranked later, but
Yeah.
I think Burns is more the beneficiary from his move from Carolina over to the Giants with with this defensive line playing opposite of Kayvon Thibodeaux. It's just the thing of it with Thibodeaux that scares me is just like I've always told you. I just feel like he doesn't have the work ethic. I feel like he takes plays off and he just kind of opportunistic and he's just so up and down. He's just such a guy that you can't trust. And just last year, even his inefficiencies, even when he had good matchups, the fact that you thought he was going to do well and then he didn't, and then other games, he gets sacks in bunches. It just doesn't make sense.
But what help did he have?
I get that he didn't have much help, but I think even with the help, I don't know if he'll take advantage because I like I said, I just don't think he's a work ethic guy. He's not one of those grinder type of players. That's been my knock on him the whole time, and that's my concern, or else I would have put him higher.
Interesting. All right, let's head over to tier number 3. Who do you got there?
So at 14, I've got Jared Verse, 13, Dallas Turner, 12, Jalen Phillips, 11, Latu, and at 10, Danielle Hunter.
Wow. Okay. At number 15, I've got Matt Judon, 14, Alex Highsmith, 13, Montez Sweat, and 12, Haason Reddick. I'm getting a little bit nervous as I'm not hearing some names coming off over there. I'm wondering if you don't have the guys I named. You don't have those guys are in your top 24, correct?
I don't have Reddick or Judon in my top 24.
Oh my word! We need to talk about this. Let's talk about. Well, let's talk Judon first. What? Just because you cut him from your dynasty roster, now you feel that he's not worthy of a top 24 pick here?
No, I mean a lot of it has to do with the age factor. He's coming off of injury. That's definitely concerning. And honestly, he's just on the Patriots, who I'm not expecting a lot out of either. And I mean, I would
But
prefer.
what's changed though? What's changed? I mean, he's been productive with a bill. I mean, if you feel that Gerard Mayo is going to be the same defensive scheme that Bill Belichick was, what's different?
Yeah, it just. I mean, there's not much different. I think the schemes and stuff is going to be the same, but I don't know. I think just like I said, coming off the injury, that's kind of concerning to me. And then it's just I know he's done it in the past, but the fact that it's so hard to pass rush when you're not winning, in the lead or in games, and I just don't know how many games that the Patriots are going to be in.
I mean, that's a bold take. I mean, it did knock the guy out of the top 24. I mean, we know edge rushers can play later in their career. I recognize he's 31 years old, but I still think that he could play another.
Well, I mean, obviously, you got him at 15.
Well, yeah. I mean, you had him in your top 24 last time. Did you not?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm almost positive he did. But I mean, let's not forget before this injury, I mean, in 2022, he had 15.5 sacks, and in 2021, he had 12.5 sacks. I mean, he's been phenomenal over in New England.
Yeah, he definitely has. I mean, there is potential for it. I don't know how much longer this guy's going to be playing for, and he is 31, and we've seen him lose games because of injury last year, and now that he is over 30. And injuries could come back to bite him here.
Okay, so you may have I could see your angle with Judon because of the bicep tear, I believe it was, and him being 31. But I don't get what you're saying about Reddick. Reddick's 29 years old, so the age is not as much a factor. In his past 4 seasons, he had 11 sacks, 16 sacks, 11 sacks, 12.5 sacks. I don't have his pressure rate on the top of my head. So are you just nervous about this like potential new contract holdout thing with the Jets and feeling like, what's going on there? Like I don't understand how you can't have Reddick in the top 24.
Well, I'm just not that excited about Haason Reddick, and then
why though? Why? I mean, how are you not excited about 12 or 14 sacks? I mean, those don't fall on trees.
No, I get that, but I think I don't like him as much going to the Jets either. The Jets already have a lot of interesting young pass rushers on the team, and now they're going to be in rotation. It's fewer snaps, and honestly, he's coming off of a bad year with the Eagles, and I don't see why much will be different this year for him on the Jets.
Wow. I just find that very surprising. Let's talk. I mean, let's talk rookies here.
I mean, he had 11 sacks, but I mean, he didn't really do a whole much in the tackles. So he's a sack dependent player last year.
I get that. So look at the rookies here. You got Latu the highest, which I'm not surprised. You got Dallas Turner and Verse, but you all have them. You have them up in tier 3. So I mean, even though this was not a very good defensive class, Latu leading the way. You are kind of going against the grain here.
You think so?
Sure.
Oh.
I mean, this was not a huge defensive draft, and there's no Will Anderson in this group, but you're having these guys almost on the cusp of the top 10.
Yeah. I mean, even though there might not have been, the top tier guys like a Will Anderson, I still think there was quality players, especially at the edge position. I mean, Latu's a guy coming in here. If it wasn't for the whole neck thing, I think he could have potentially gotten higher. But still, even with that, he's been playing the last couple of years, with that whole neck thing. I'm not concerned about it. This guy is ready to go. He's got a lot of different pass rush moves. I think he's going to, have a pretty decent rookie year and going forward. And then Dallas Turner, I mean, the guy's he's really young. He went to a great place in Minnesota. I was kind of iffy on Dallas Turner, especially if he potentially went to the Falcons. That didn't excite me. But the fact that he's going to Minnesota with Flores being there, I think he's just going to find ways to free these guys up. You kind of saw, Wanham kind of come out of nowhere last year for them. And then the fact that they bring in,
now Grenard's coming over there now.
They've got Jonathan Grenard. We saw what he was able to do opposite of the former teammate in Will Anderson of Dallas Turner. So curious to just see how everything goes. So I really liked his landing spot, even though it's kind of iffy on the player itself. And then Jared Verse, I think, landed in a pretty good spot with the Rams as well, between what they've got up front, the defensive tackle, and then you saw they had some young pass rushers as well that I think he'll benefit playing alongside.
So this probably won't come to a surprise to you. I do not have Latu in the top 24.
No, yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Well, because I'm much more concerned that you are. I think I've said this. I'm gonna stick to it until
he's
I'm
AJ Epinesa.
He's a more athletic AJ Epinesa. That's what I see. I just don't see the guy.
Do you realize? I mean, his RAS score was pretty good though.
I don't care. Here's the thing. I think no, I don't. I don't care.
Wow.
I mean, Turner and Verse were good too. I just don't see. I just don't see it. The guy's got great pass rush moves. I don't think he's got a good first quick step, and I think he's going to have problems. I really do. I don't think he's going to be as dominant as you think he's going to be. I think he's going to be a rotational edge at best.
Interesting.
No, I don't. I agree with you. Sorry, on Turner. I think it's a great landing spot for him. I really like what Flores could do with him. We've seen what he's been able to do, even with, taking Danielle Hunter to having the year that he had. I am a little surprised that you have Danielle Hunter here, but we'll talk about him a little bit later. Why don't we head over to well, you'll see where I
want to talk about productive players, and this guy's under 30.
Well, you'll see where I have him. That's why I'm saying about Hunter. But let's head over to.
You must not have him in your top 24.
Let's head over to tier 2. What do you got over there?
All right. In tier 2, at number 9, I've got Brian Burns. At 8, I've got Josh Allen. 7, Will Anderson. And number 6, Nick Bosa.
All right. At number 11, I've got Kayvon Thibodeaux. 10, Josh Allen. 9, Brian Burns. 8, Aidan Hutchinson. And 7, Will Anderson. I already know what you're thinking. You're already thinking that Aidan Hutchinson at 8 is a disgrace. So I know you, but you just have your Michigan bias. I mean, let's be real. You this is the former Michigan man, and he's on your Detroit Lions that you're sick. You're now your favorite team in the NFC. Look, Joe, Aidan Hutchinson is a hustle guy. And I know you love hustle motor players. I'm not like that. I like the flash. and he doesn't have it. And to me, here's the thing. I don't know what's the supporting cast. The Lions haven't done a great job of giving him a lot of a supporting cast.
What are you talking about?
Who's your supporting cast?
I'm going to find out right now.
No, don't even look. Who's the opposite pass rusher without you looking? You're scurrying on your keyboard because you can't even think of who it is. I can tell you right now, it's Marcus Davenport, who hasn't done anything, and I think Justin Houston is another. Or I think I don't know if Justin's his first name, but it's the undrafted fella. So you couldn't even figure it out. You're like, you couldn't scurry fast enough to try to figure out who was the opposite player from Aidan Hutchinson.
Oh, fair enough. But I think one thing they did to help him though was improve that secondary, and
Debatable.
Might not be at the edge rusher position, but they did get DJ Reader to play alongside Ellie McNeil, so they're gonna have some bodies up in the interior to kind of. They're not, take that attention. DJ Reader should pull a double team, which could easily free up Aidan Hutchinson.
But I mean, why wouldn't a team just double team Aidan Hutchinson? They don't really have to fear anybody else on that line.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably not wrong there, but I mean, maybe Marcus Davenport, the guy just hasn't been able to stay healthy. I mean, that's the thing.
He can't.
So,
I understand you like the potential of the guy. I just don't, and I know you're going to have him in tier 1. I don't view him as a tier 1 player because I don't think that I just don't see him. I don't see him like you remember
he's kind of like George Karlaftis, and you probably don't see him doing more than what he already has shown.
What I don't understand is you grew up watching Von Miller. I mean, Von Miller had the bend, man. I mean, like you saw those are the type of pass rushers to me that it's like these guys are the dominant guys. I mean, these guys that can
Maxx
get around.
Crosby's not dominant then.
Well, you'll see where I've got Maxx Crosby.
I'm just saying.
He's a different player. He gets a lot of
tackles.
Yeah, but he's different. He gets a lot of tackles. He gets a ton of tackles, more so than most. Hutchinson doesn't get as many tackles as Maxx Crosby.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Prove me wrong. I'll admit if I'm wrong. Prove me wrong. See, go check it out. You scurry around over there and figure out what the tackle number is. I'm pretty sure you'll find out that they're not. There's quite a sizable difference between the two.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, I'm not going to debate that Maxx Crosby doesn't have more tackles. I mean, that dude's just an animal. But I'm just saying he's a similar type of player, in my eyes, to Aidan Hutchinson.
Yeah, well, I mean you and I have different styles, but I might surprise you in some ways. I know you're gonna have Aidan Hutchinson higher. I know you like him a lot. I still like him. I have him 8. I just don't have him as high as you do.
Fair enough.
So what did you find in your research?
I see. Aidan
Hutchinson have for total tackles?
51.
Okay, and what did Maxx Crosby have?
Compared to 90 of Crosby, which
yeah, blew it out of the water. I told you.
I mean, I wasn't going to deny
you. Almost doubled it. You almost doubled it.
I wasn't denying the fact that Crosby has more tackles.
This makes me happy. I'm glad to hear that was the stat. I feel justified.
I mean, they were only off by 3 sacks, if that makes you feel any better.
Whatever. Okay, so let's talk about Nick Bosa. So, I knew that you have him a little bit lower. I think some will be a little bit surprised as to why you have him in this tier. In your previous video, you had him lower before as well. So talk to me. Talk to the viewers here. What's making you put Bosa here?
Just I know Nick Bosa. A lot of people have him up higher, but I mean, you want to talk about just last year. I mean, he had 53 tackles, 10.5 sacks. I just felt like he should have done more with what they had around him and just everything on the defensive line. I mean, I know the year before that he had 18.5 sacks, 15.5, but then for him to go down that drastically, and the sack numbers, especially when he's not that high of a tackle guy historically, I just felt like in so many games it was just easy for teams to avoid Nick Bosa and kind of take him out of the game. And I'd rather see guys that don't get eliminated in the game as easily.
Do you think it's an underrated move? I guess, or it's a weird way to say it, but with Eric Armstead going to the Jags, do you think that'll hurt him more than what people think?
I think it can. I mean, in like, I know you want to talk about running mates. To me, like, they don't have a ton of edge rushers opposite of Nick Bosa either. They have the confusing part is just they were just absolutely stacked up the middle. And I just thought with the interior potentially getting rushed, I mean, they brought in a guy like Javon Hargrave last year. Just felt like that potential interior push. It should have been easier for somebody around the edge. Like, especially as somebody as talented as Nick Bosa, I really felt like he should have just had more than the 10.5 sacks and been more of a dominant player.
All right, Joe, fasten your seatbelt here because you're going to want to when you hear my tier 1. Who do you got for yourself first?
Are we going to talk about Danielle Hunter?
We will. Just
okay, so you're still going to talk about him.
Fasten your seatbelt. We're going to tier 1.
Because the way you were talking made me think that you didn't have him in there, but fair enough. So at number 5, I've got Myles Garrett. At number 4, I got TJ Watt. 3, I've got Micah Parsons. 2, I've got Aidan Hutchinson. And at number 1, I've got Maxx Crosby. There wasn't any change in the top 5.
All right. At number 6, I've got Danielle Hunter. Number 5, Myles Garrett. Number 4, TJ Watt. Number 3, Nick Bosa. Number 2, Micah Parsons. And number 1, Maxx Crosby.
Wow. You do have Crosby at number 1. I'm surprised.
I know. I told you to fasten your seatbelt. I know you weren't going to expect that at all.
No. He's not the bendy type of player that you like.
No. Well, you've been chomping at the bit to talk about Danielle Hunter. So let me explain my reasoning on this. Danielle Hunter had a fantastic season last year. I was fading him because of the different injuries he's had to deal with. To me, I was very concerned with Hunter. So when he did what he did last year, I thought was kind of eye-opening what he was able to do with Brian Flores. I mean, he had 16.5 sacks, which I want to say was a career high for him. So to me, that was very impressive. Now he goes to the Houston Texans. He's going to be across Will Anderson. We didn't talk about Will Anderson, but to me, that might be the best edge duo in the league. I mean, I think the two of them are just going to wreak havoc. So I have them back to back, but Danielle Hunter is only 29 years old. So to me, it's like, how could you not think that Danielle Hunter is going to continue to succeed? So I felt like based on what he's been able to do over these past few years, which he's been very consistent, I felt like he was worthy to be in this tier 1 conversation.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I mean, I thought you were when I had him at 10, I was thinking that you I didn't know where you had him, but I was surprised that you got him in tier 1. But I mean, he definitely made the case. I mean, he has been very productive, and I like his spot, even though he's leaving Minnesota. I mean, like you said, him being opposite of Will Anderson in Houston, he couldn't have gotten potentially a better landing spot, really.
Well, I think I just gave too much credit. I think it was Zadarius Smith, who I believe was his running mate for a while in Minnesota, and I thought losing him was going to really, as I was going to say, who was Hunter's running mate? It didn't matter. He continued to wreak havoc, even in a horrible defense with a horrible secondary. Just honestly, just proves how good of a player he really is.
Yeah, I just think too, what helped was just the aggressiveness of Flores and the different players that he was sending on blitzes. So like, even though he might not have had the best, running mate, even last year, even though Wanham really proved himself, but most people didn't even really know who he was.
No.
So I just think the creative way that Flores was able to bring blitzes and linebackers and really just kind of free those guys up was a really benefit. But now that he's with Houston, obviously we saw what Jonathan Grenard was able to do last year, opposite of Will Anderson. With these two, like you said, they're gonna be a nightmare together in Houston.
So the other guys are mostly chalk, and you didn't really change your tier 1. But I will talk about one guy who I did change, and I know he's your favorite guy, and that's Maxx Crosby. I had Micah Parsons as number 1 last time, and I thought about putting him there, but when you talk about this, it really flushes out your philosophy. And I really do believe, although a pass rusher can be dominant as a standalone player, I think it's hard because you could have in defense, you could have these premier edge rushers being double teamed, even triple teamed. You saw that Aaron Donald sometimes. It was like literally there's like 3 people blocking this guy. So when it came to this, I was like, who does Micah Parsons have to work with? Really nobody. Maxx Crosby, they bring in a guy like Christian Wilkins. Maxx Crosby is now. I was kind of waffling because I'm like, is Christian Wilkins going to take out the tackle floor that Maxx Crosby has had? Because obviously Wilkins is all about the tackles, but at the same time, Maxx Crosby has not had any help from the interior from anybody I think his whole career. So what's that going to do, that dynamic? So I think at the end of the day, I think it's going to benefit Crosby. I don't think that Wilkins is going to cannibalize Crosby. I think they're both going to benefit it because, we saw that Christian Wilkins was able to coexist with, guys like Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, all those guys last year. Everyone was able to eat. So I think the same thing. And that's why I think Maxx Crosby, who, every team, man, they know who that guy is. I think he could really excel. He's already been very good. I think he could take a next step forward this upcoming season with a head coach he believes in, an AP. I mean, I think, they had that team. He had that team rallying. He really did. So, a defensive-minded coach, he's going to pin his ears back and watch out. So I felt Crosby was deserving to be at 1, even though he doesn't necessarily fit my style per se. But his tackle floor is unmatched. It really is.
Yeah, I mean that just is his pure relentlessness and motor, and just unwillingness to be blocked. Essentially, I mean he plays angry, and he's a player I love to watch. I know he's not your type of player, Steve, because he doesn't have the flash and the quickness that you like on the edge.
He's got the grit, though. I mean, I get that, but he. Like I told you, the tackle floor is a huge difference because in my mind, I think, guys like Hutchinson, maybe, yes, they have great hustle, but are they going to have 15-plus sacks? Maxx Crosby, he doesn't necessarily need that. He can just have that huge tackle floor and also wreak havoc and get sacks. Now with Christian Wilkins there, I think it definitely changed the game for me.
Yeah, Wilkins is going to be a big help. I mean, obviously, Crosby was a monster he was a very productive player without a guy like that in the defense, interior of that defense. But now having him, I definitely think he's got, obviously his ceiling and potential just increased just because of that for sure.
So that does it for our top 24 Dynasty defensive rankings with tiers, which included rookies. If you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and check our other episodes where we talked about offense with your quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends. Coming up in our next episode, we're going to be talking about defensive tackles. I don't know about you, Joe. I did a lot of arranging, probably the most arranging I've done yet in all of the rankings that we've done. So that'll be interesting.
I definitely have some movement on my end as well. I don't know about the most, but definitely some players moved for me.
I think it might have been the most when I look back, to be honest, but it was definitely a lot. It was definitely a lot. There's a lot that happened.
For sure.
So hopefully you look forward to that. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.